You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hello, everybody. I am starting us off this week with a topic that was actually inspired by my last week's topic of the Atacama Desert.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
So last week I talked about how the Atacama is a fog desert, and it's one of a small handful of fog deserts that exist around the world.
Right.
And the one that's most similar to the Atacama is the Namib Desert on the southwest coast of Africa, mainly in Namibia, go figure.
Yeah, right.
So I had been going back and forth about whether to discuss the Namib or the Atacama, but the Namib is nearly as dry and maybe just as old as the Atacama. But I want to talk about some of the plant and animal life that has some adaptations. So similar to the Atacama, what plant and animal life there is in the Namib has some remarkable adaptations to make the most of what water is available. So actually, amazingly, there are even lions that live in the Namib, and they get most of their water from the blood of the animals they kill. So they hardly drink much water at all. And they actually,
why not?
All right.
They will even eat seals. They're the only lions to regularly eat seals and seabirds.
Hold on. Hold on.
I'm with Rachel on this one. Full stop.
Yeah.
First of all, lions, water. I didn't know that there are I knew that some lions kind of like water, but most cats don't.
Well, I don't know if they're getting into the water.
Okay.
They might be getting a seal that's up on the beach.
Can you give us...
I'm hung up on seals in the desert.
There's also that. Also, can you give us a geographic pinpoint where the Namib Desert is?
So this is like southwestern Africa on the coast. So similar to the Atacama, it's in between the ocean and a mountain-like geographic feature to the east. So these lions can be near the beaches and kill seals. But this is not actually what I wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay. 'Cause I gotta say, seals in the desert.
Yep.
You have me at the strange.
Yeah,
right
no.
there.
I mean, the coastal waters are quite productive, so the seals have plenty to eat. And then they come up on shore.
So the desert abuts the ocean.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That was a little key piece I was missing in my brain. That was like, why are there seals in the desert?
Yeah.
I got you now. Okay.
Yeah. What I actually want to talk about is an organism that can't roam around like lions do, and it has to get whatever water comes its way. It's a plant, of course. The Austrian scientist who first recorded this plant for Western science said that when he first saw it, he just fell to his knees and simply gazed at it for a long time, afraid to touch it in case it wasn't real because it looked so strange.
Okay.
This guy's name was Friedrich Velwitsch, and the plant is now named after him. It's called Welwitschia mirabilis, known as Welwitschia. It's also called tree tumbo in English, which is similar to its main name in Namibia, which is Tumboa.
Okay.
So have either of you heard of this plant?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Oh, wait. Say the name again.
It's spelled Welwitschia. But it could be pronounced Welwitschia.
I believe I've eaten this.
Eaten?
That's what I'm thinking of.
Well, we'll see. So it is really, really one of the strangest plants around. It's a gymnosperm, so it's like conifers, like pine trees, like cycads. It means it makes cones and seeds rather than flowers and fruit. It's one of the two big divisions of plants. And this plant consists of its root system, a stem base, and 2 leaves. And nothing else.
Not the plant I'm thinking of.
Okay.
The plant I'm thinking of has the same species, different genus.
All right. Gotcha.
I just looked this up so I could get a picture. And what?
Yeah. So they can be up to 1.8 meters high and 8.7 meters wide. So that's about like 6 feet high and almost like 18 feet wide, I guess.
Hey, Kirk jumping in here on the edit, just so we have the right number. 8.7 meters is actually 28 feet and 6.5 inches. So pretty big.
So these 2 solitary leaves are huge, wide, flat, kind of leathery. And as they age, they get shredded into ribbons.
Right.
And they curve outward to the ground. So the plant sort of looks like a giant, ugly bow on top of a wrapped present.
Yeah. This plant does not look nice.
It's like a train wreck of a plant.
Yeah. I would be concerned if this was my plant. I would be so concerned. I would be watering it probably too much because I would think it's dying.
Yeah.
It
doesn't
looks
look
like a pile of pale green dirty laundry.
Yes.
That's kind of the image I'm getting in my head.
In spite of the ragged appearance, they can actually be extremely long-lived. So based on carbon dating, it appears that some of the biggest plants may be as old as 2,000 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a general lifespan estimated of 400 to 1,500 years.
Amazing.
Interestingly,
plants are so cool.
Yeah. Unlike a lot of gymnosperms, which are usually wind-pollinated, Welwitschia produces nectar and is pollinated by insects. Now,
in the desert?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Why not? You might not have researched this. What insects?
They're not totally sure. They think maybe a beetle, maybe a wasp, maybe more than one type of insect.
Okay.
Yeah. But back to the fact that it has only 2 leaves. So gardeners and botanists will know this, and others, you may remember some of this from elementary school science experiments, but when seeds first germinate, they send up 1 or 2 small leaves called cotyledons. And these are usually somewhat different in appearance from the regular leaves that grow later. And actually in gymnosperms, that can be up to 24 cotyledons. But at any rate, other normal leaves are added as the plant grows, and the cotyledons are eventually shed. Not for Welwitschia. It just keeps the 2 cotyledons and never grows any other leaves.
So it's a dicot, and that's all it got.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I think if it's a gymnosperm, you can't exactly call it a dicot.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yes.
I think those are technically monocots.
Yeah, we're getting into super nerdy plant stuff.
All right, we'll avoid the super nerdy plants.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But still, okay, so it grows basically the starter leaves, and then doesn't grow anymore.
Right. They just keep growing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do those leaves ever die off and they have to grow new ones?
No. That's why they get all shredded.
Wow. It just keeps on growing fresh from the base and
it just sort of like hair.
Oh.
Except it never falls out.
Amazing.
Huh.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so leaving the leaves and going onto the root system, the taproot goes very deep to find underground water. And it also has a wide network of more spongy roots that spread out to find water in the more shallow areas around the plant. And the leaves are also textured so that they are really good at capturing the fog that rolls in each night into the desert from the ocean.
Nice.
And the curving shape of the leaves down to the ground directs the water drops down to where the roots are. So it's really, really amazingly adapted to just get whatever water it can out. And
that's effective, yeah.
It tends to grow in dry stream beds, so if there is rain, it can get the water that comes through. The leaves also have an unusually high number of stomata. That's the little pore holes in them. So for a long time, botanists thought that it maybe actually absorbed water directly through the leaves, but apparently that is not the case, based on more recent research.
So do they know why it had so many stomata?
Unclear. Yeah. Not that I saw. So as you might imagine, as one of the few plants that's growing in a very dry desert, they are a key species for the animals that do live there. And in drought conditions, various animals like springbok can be seen chewing their leaves to get moisture.
You're like, no, I don't have many.
Yeah.
I'm dry. I'm dry.
Really rough.
Don't eat me.
And it's also, of course, used for shelter by various animals because it makes some pretty good shade if you're a small creature.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lovely living spot.
Yeah. And, there are not a lot of people in this area of the world, so it's in okay shape conservation-wise. There is a fungal pathogen that's causing some concern recently, and then it can be subject to overgrazing from animals that are in the desert, either wild animals or domesticated ones, and stuff like off-road vehicles running over them is not good for them either.
That'll do it. Yep.
But it's a super cool plant, really amazing. There's nothing else like it. And it's found in many botanic gardens and conservatories, so you might actually be able to go see one if you live near a place that happens to grow it.
That'd be cool to see.
Cool.
And I would love to see one in person. Yeah. I don't know if I looked up to try to see if it was at the Como Zoo Conservatory, but didn't find any information on that. That's our closest
conservatory
to where we live. Yeah.
Well, if any of our dear listeners have ever seen one of these near you, please do drop us a line and let us know.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah, and I just did want to shout out the website for the South African National Biodiversity Institute, because their webpage on Welwitschia was particularly helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you. That's cool.
Yeah. You're welcome. We are going to have a quick break, and when we come back, it'll be Kirk's turn.
So we find ourselves here at the end of season 1. There's just one more episode, a real special episode after this. We wanted to thank those of you who have helped make it possible with your financial support. And those are the members of the Society of Strange. Our newest members are Amanda and Amy and Dave and Linda and Robert and Oakley. A big shout out to all of you.
Thank you guys so much. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, woohoo! Thank you for being part of our patrons and supporting the Society of Strange. If you want to help out, you can head on over to patreon.com/strangebynature to become a member of the Society yourself today. Now back to the show. I don't know if you all remember, a couple weeks back, we had Laura on as our guest on the podcast. It was episode 51. And I said there was 2 theories behind how researchers think animals know which way is north or which way is south, right? And the one that ended up discussing was this bizarre idea that birds can actually see the magnetic field of the Earth due to quantum entanglement of electrons in their eyes.
Yeah.
That story still baffles me.
I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it, Kirk.
Yeah, if you haven't heard that episode, do go check it out. It was really fun. I mentioned in that episode, though, that there is another hypothesis how animals find their way, and it was very simply put that they have metal in their heads. They're metal heads.
Oh my god.
You might be thinking, wait a minute, didn't we rule that out as being the possible solution when we figured out the eye thing? And there's really no reason to think that these 2 hypotheses are mutually exclusive, meaning they could both be. Just because one is true does not mean the other has to be false. Animals could be using both methods. So,
yes,
that's what I'm talking about this week. Is there really evidence of metal in the bodies of animals, giving them a sense of direction? It turns out, yeah.
What?
Yeah, there is.
What?
Oh yeah.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa. What?
Oh yeah, that's what we're talking about. So,
I bet it's very, very small amounts of metal.
Right. Of course, yeah. So some
Right,
listeners
so it's
may
not a
recall.
plate. Got it.
No, not a steel plate in your head. That's if you have that, that was added. Um, there was a study that came out that was been cited sometimes about like pigeons having metal deposits in their beaks. I remember hearing about that years ago. That study was unfortunately kind of debunked. But there's a new, very interesting study that came out last month in the worst named scientific journal of all time.
Yes, tell me,
Ooh, I can't wait to
tell
hear
me, tell
this.
me.
What is it?
Well, last week my story was from the Proceedings of the Royal Society, right?
Right,
Well,
sounded pretentious,
yeah.
but good.
Americans decided that sounded pretty cool. So they decided to form the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences to sort of like be on par with that. But of course, that's a mouthful. And so we're
Right.
like, oh, no, we have to shorten that. And so I'm just going to spell out the acronym here. It's PNAS. Now, gentle listeners, I'll leave it up to you to decide how to pronounce PNAS. And we're just going to leave that there and move right on.
I think the P is silent, Kirk.
Yeah.
We're just going to say the P is
Sure.
silent.
Sure.
It's pronounced NAS.
Uh-huh.
The P
Yeah.
is silent.
Okay there, Rachel.
It wasn't that funny, I
It's been a
thought.
long day.
All right. Well, the story that caught my eye in the that particular journal was called "Conservation of Magnetite Biomineralization in All Domains of Life and Implications for Magnetic Sensing." So the upshot of this research is that they were able to show that basic bacterial eukaryotic life has the ability to biomineralize free iron in the environment into magnetite crystals. And
What?
magnetite, for
Wow.
those not familiar, is a naturally magnetic form of iron. It's actually the form of iron that is most heavily affected by magnetic field.
Hence the
And
name magnetite.
Exactly. It's a very cool mineral. Now, most of the life we commonly think of on Earth is eukaryotic life. This is something we've talked about on the show before. And thus is believed that most of this life on Earth has evolved from simple eukaryotic bacteria. And what these researchers were trying to show is that this ability to biomineralize magnetite is found at the very base of the evolutionary tree and is something that could, at least theoretically, have been spread to essentially all or many higher forms of life higher up on the evolutionary. So the big question that becomes, well, was it? Incredibly, the answer appears to be yes.
I was hoping you would say it was
Ooh.
yes.
Yeah. So the research team identified the genes responsible for their mineralization in the bacteria, and they then looked at salmon because salmon have incredible navigation and orientation skills. We should just do an episode on salmon. But they're able to identify minuscule samples of magnetite crystals that were in like little clusters in the olfactory cells of the salmon, which is pretty
Their
interesting.
nose?
Yeah, so basically in their nose, and we mainly think of olfactory cells as helping us smell, but
Right.
it could be that they also help animals find their way in magnetic field of the Earth. The researchers were able to, when I started talking about genes, right? So I looked at
Right.
the genes in the eukaryotic bacteria and whatnot to show that like these are the ones that help them biomineralize magnetite. They were able to find homologous genes in the salmon that they believe correspond to the genes in the bacteria that code for that. So it's like, not only did they find magnetite there, they found essentially the same genes. And it's not just one gene, there's a group of about 11 or so found that were also present in the salmon. And so
Whoa,
it's
that's
like,
more
it
significant.
seems, yeah, it's really cool. Now, I am simplifying a lot of what was in this research paper. I don't want to throw too much at people at once. For example, there was a whole thing about how the genes found in the eukaryotic bacteria were also found in even older, more basic prokaryotic life. So the ability to biomineralize magnetite goes way back. And it's really fascinating that it has carried forward to this day and is possibly crucial to how many species find their way around on this magnetic planet of ours, which I think is so amazingly cool, and I just love it. The idea that animals actually have tiny magnetite magnets in their heads is amazing and ridiculous at the same
Just a
time.
bit.
It's, because you picture like a big magnet in your head, and that's not what it is. But from an evolutionary standpoint, though, given that we live on a planet with a fairly strong magnetic field, I think it'd actually be almost weirder if at least some animals had not evolved a way to take advantage of that, right?
I
Especially
suppose.
especially since like the ability to get magnetite in your body, like it's sort of baked into our DNA. Now,
Yeah.
I will say other teams had looked for magnetite in animals before and not found it. So the paper also discusses some new techniques they used to kind of find this, which is cool. Like we're getting better at finding the magnetite in the animals. And these were tiny clusters of crystals. And now that we know to look for them, we need like researchers start checking other animals and really also nailing down the bigger question of how. Like, how can a body be using these to actually sense the magnetic field? Because I don't think that's the part we have totally figured out yet. So very similar to the
Mm-hmm.
eye research I was talking about. We have a plausible, you know, method, not a method, like, how do I want to say it? Like we have a something there that could make it possible. We're not sure how that translates exactly into the animals sensing the magnetic field or what that would be like them for them. But there is some really interesting things that research went into about different nerves and how certain nerves were connected to these areas, and so they are actually starting to hone in on that how question as well, which I think is so so amazing. Uh, it's kind of what I have you magnet-headed animals. Uh, I love it, and I love that, you know, this new research is constantly going on, and I feel like we live in this amazing time when there's just so many new things being found out, and so it's always fun to uh, about what we know and also what we don't yet know and are trying to figure out.
That's really fair. Also, I'm not gonna get the picture out of my head of a salmon with like a magnet stuck up its nose.
I mean, want to have that in your head? I can't stop you.
I don't want it in my head, but it's interesting.
Well, that's not the. I mean, that's a cool image. That's not the image I have in my head. The image I have in my head is how I would go about finding little bits of magnetite in an organism,
Mm-hmm.
and the method that occurred to me is stick the whole thing in a blender, and then
Well, and
put it
that
out on a tray, pass a magnet over it, and see if anything sticks to
I
it.
wasn't
mean,
gonna
that
go
works.
into this, but actually I think they kind of addressed that a little bit in the paper because there had been previous studies looking for magnetite in salmon, and they basically found there was magnetite, but it was sort of just like clumped up and free floating around, and they're like, well, this can't be useful. It must be just like incidental, like gunk, intercellular gunk, kind of, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But what these researchers kind of figured out was that the technique that was used, which I'll admit I didn't totally understand, but I think some people had used basically some like MRI type imaging stuff that uses like rotating magnets to
Mm-hmm.
make the magnetite visible, was basically shredding some of the cells possibly because they were using a
Mm.
rotating magnet, and that rotating magnet was causing perhaps the shredding of some cells on a small level, and some of the magnetite was escaping from the cells. So it wasn't quite a
Yeah.
blender, Victoria, but they think that they did actually
It's
address that in the paper that the technique used can, if it's too much of a destructive technique, I mean, obviously a blender is super destructive, but
I'm
even the previous technique they were thinking might have been destructive, and that's why they didn't get the same results these people did, who actually came up with a new technique for detecting it.
I mean, that just means that the MRI is a giant magnetic blender to a salmon.
Okay, now I'm not saying they use an MRI and it's not a blender. Don't worry about going, although you should not have metal on you if you go into an MRI.
No.
But
I
well, this has
said
gotten
for
strange.
salmon, not for humans. We can withstand other more a higher level of magnetism than a salmon.
You know that? Have you tested that?
No, but do you want to?
Yeah, let's go. All
All
right, we're
right.
gonna take a quick break and go get an MRI and some salmon. And when we come back, it'll be Rachel's turn to share some of our strange world with us. Hey everyone, something a little different during today's break. We have a trailer for another podcast you might find interesting. This is the podcast Dear Humans. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Eve. I'm from the East End of Long Island, New York. Growing up, there was one wild animal I came across constantly: deer.
Half of the people want to see them vaporized, the other half won't let you touch a little hair on their head.
This is a podcast about deer and people, and how in one unique community, these two species are bound in a web of conflict that has been decades in the making.
Everybody's screaming for a solution, but nobody's even trying.
It makes me want to cry. It's like, how do we undo this?
We know that hunting works. Over all these years and all the things they've tried, hunting works.
I think people are starting to come around and realize they have to do something.
You got to do anything and everything you can to win this battle.
In a very real sense, deer-human interactions are a microcosm of the many challenges our society faces in dealing with the natural world. So yes, this is a story about deer, but it's also a story about people. It's about the environment and our relationship to it. It's about land and who has the right to inhabit space. It's about disease epidemics. And ultimately, it's about conflict. Why we take sides, how opinions get politicized, and what we can learn by listening to one another. I'm Eve Bishop, and this is Dear Humans. You can listen to the show wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, visit evebishop.net.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, what do you both know about the color of the sky?
I feel like this is a trick question now.
I'm going to...
I mean, it's variable.
I know what you want us to say. It's blue. The sky is blue.
Blue sky.
The sky is blue most of the time. Yeah.
Not in Minnesota in the winter, but sure.
Sure. So I just got really intrigued by this question I kind of know why the sky is blue. A lot of the explanation you get when you're a kid is it reflects off of like water particles or whatever in the air and turns blue or whatever, which isn't quite the case. Or it's blue because the ocean is blue. And
I hate that one. I hate that one. All of my being.
Not true. So I decided to go a little more in depth about it.
You're talking about your segment is why is the sky blue?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was why is the sky the color that it is?
Cool.
Because you were 7.
Because I'm 7. Yes. I was just really curious one day. I was thinking about different topics and I was looking off into the sky. I think I was driving at the time and I was like, why is the sky this color? Why does the sunset change?
Note that she's
why
not
is it different
watching
colors?
the road or anything. Okay, yeah.
I was driving into the sunset.
Okay, like you do.
So, like I do, it was fine. But I was just really curious because it's not something I've really done I'd not done a lot of research on. And first of all, for all of you, I went into some physics about this. I am not good on physics very well.
We're here to back you up,
I
Rachel.
appreciate that.
Rachel,
because
don't
I'm
do
trying.
physics good.
No. I did my very, very best.
We're so excited.
But I wanted to talk about the reason that the sky is the color that it is, and it's whether it's at sunset or sunrise or during the day, is due to an effect, a phenomenon called Rayleigh scattering. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is not only the brightness of the sky, so like how like bright the blue is and how we have different shades of it, or different shades of any of the colors, but it also works with the ramen effect.
Ramen.
Ramen.
Which flavor?
Are we talking chicken or beef or?
It's RAMAN. So not the noodle dish. Which is like only it works with it only when it's in high intensities, and it's a much weaker effect. So I'm not going to go into the ramen effect, even though it's a very entertaining name.
So you tease us with ramen, and then we don't get it.
I did. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
You're making me hungry.
I'm so sorry. I did have ramen for lunch today. Anyway, getting back on track, the Rayleigh scattering is more or less very basically brought down the effect of sun or light coming in, hitting particles of air, and scattering the light.
Yeah.
Like, hence why it's called scattering. Kind of like, Kirk, I know you've played with prisms.
Oh, yeah. Big nerd, yeah.
Pretty much, it's the same effect if you hit white light and you take it like a flashlight to a prism, and it breaks it up into all the colors of the rainbow.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, this is on a much
Where did the other colors go, Rachel?
I'm getting to it, Victoria.
He's so impatient. Talk about 7-year-old. Jeez.
Oh,
this is why we don't give this answer to 7-year-olds, because they're like, now I'm bored.
Right, exactly. That's why I'm giving it here.
I'm not saying you're boring, Rachel. This is great. Keep going.
Aww, thank you. But it's just really, it's fascinating because it's happening on a widespread scale. So throughout the day, what's happening is the big white light for that prism is the sun. So all the white light is coming through our atmosphere, and it's hitting the air particles, whether it's O2, CO2, whatever it is, and it's hitting nitrogen, mostly nitrogen, let's face it.
Yes.
And it hits those and it breaks the light apart. The thing is, light obviously has multiple wavelengths, but it also scatters a little bit differently. Blue light travels a little faster. It has a much higher frequency than like red light or orange light. So when the sun is more or less up high enough in the sky, the angle of the sun, when it hits those air particles, the light that's spread out is blue. That's why the sky is blue. But as the sun goes towards the end, when it's like sunset or sunrise, the angle changes, and so it allows the wavelengths that are being scattered, it allows the reds and the oranges, and the other lights wavelengths to hit our eyes, so we see a different color, if that makes sense. Yes?
Well, I mean, I think
Totally.
the question that Victoria was getting at is like, so when you have the light coming in, it's hitting dust or different molecules up in the atmosphere.
Yes.
Is that the blue light is scattered more, and so we're seeing that more? Because I think Victoria's saying, where does the red light go during the middle of the day?
Yeah. So I think what I'm understanding is that when the sunlight scatters, more blue light is scattered. More blue light is sort of scattered than red light is scattered.
Yes.
And so the blue is coming through
more
strongly than the other colors, which is why we see blue.
Yes. But when the angle changes, more of like the red light gets scattered than blue. That's why we see red at like sunset or sunrise, is because the light scatters when it hits at a different angle, based on where we are on the planet and the sun and everything. The angle actually will cause the different wavelengths to be scattered differently. So it allows the the red light to reach us rather than, or be reflected rather than absorbed.
This is also incidentally.
So what I think I remember is that when the sun's near the horizon, the light is actually reaching you through more of the atmosphere than when it's higher in the sky. So the thickness of the atmosphere is what's mainly causing the effect of the red to show through more.
It's interesting, you mentioned like what happens to other colors and whatnot too. When you think about when you're looking at sun, every kid's drawing of the sun in cartoon, the sun is yellow.
It's yellow.
And you go, we do not have a yellow star. Like if you were up in space and looked at the sun, it is white. It is white light. But the reason the sun sometimes looks yellow is because the blue is being taken out of is scattering, and you're seeing all the other colors, and so what you're left with is yellow.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a really complicated topic that I was trying to distill down as best as I could. You wouldn't think it would be that difficult of a topic because you're just like, well, the sky is blue because the sky is blue. Who cares? But there's a lot of okay, I care too. Hence why I did this. But it's really interesting how like the atoms and molecules like interact with each other and how they interact with light particles to scatter. I obviously didn't do it quite enough justice, and if you want to know more, I highly recommend you go in. I used a couple different articles, like I used a Science Direct article on Rayleigh scattering, and a physics at Georgetown physics department had a really interesting article about Rayleigh scattering that also helped more or less once I deciphered the physics.
Yeah,
but
it's very complicated.
It's so complicated, but it's really fascinating if you want to learn a little bit more on why our sky is the color it is.
Now, I do have a special little teaser I want to throw out there with this topic. We have some people who are awesome, who are members of the Society of Strange, and those are our patrons. And I'm going to tease everybody who's not a patron, because in the bonus material for this episode, we do like have a little bonus that goes up for each episode. We put other material in. I'm going to tell all of our patrons, all the Society of Strange members who get that bonus content, I'm going to tell you why the sky actually is not blue.
Why would you do this to me, Kirk? My whole topic was why it was blue.
I know, which is, you have to hold on. Well, I'll ask this question then, and I'll tell you, I will answer this question. And as a thank you, our patrons get to hear the answer, but you just have to be in agony if you don't hear the answer. The question is, if the wavelengths like blue are scattered more, right? Blue is not the end of the color spectrum. After blue, we've got your indigos and your purples and whatnot, right? So why is the sky not purple?
Interesting.
And I'm going to answer that for you in the bonus.
All right. Thank you all for listening this week. Appreciate it.
Gotta become a patron to find out the answer, I guess. Sorry. Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.